I think somebody needs to pinch me right now or tell me I'm dreaming, because the 964 Turbo has been a dream car of mine for a long time. The funny thing is, a few years back, and when I really started getting into cars, I was never really a fan of Porsches, kind of the way they looked. I never understood why they kind of had the, I guess, cult-like following and a really big fan base as they do. But as I started getting into cars, and in the last couple of years, I've just really come around to appreciate the 911, the shape of the car, the philosophy behind Porsche, and the way they've never kind of strayed away from that slightly flawed, but in its own sense, perfect rear engine layout. Now, this car does have a few modifications, which is kind of very rare for these cars, seeing as this has become somewhat of a collector in recent years, and the values of these cars are really starting to peak and continue to rise. So to get a modified one like this with upgraded suspension, a bigger turbo, and all the supporting mods is not something you see every day. And actually, this car in particular is one of 4 original Canadian cars
Just look at it. Stunning from every angle, and its presence, even on screen, is impossible to deny. In essence, this is one of the last truly analog driving experiences money can buy.
But it's really a shame that people don't drive these cars as much as they should be driven, because it's really an amazing beast. The shifter is insanely notchy, really solid and really notchy. All the pedals are floor hinged, kind of like a race car. The steering wheel, perfect size, really small. This steering rack is tighter than I think anything I've ever driven. So this car has actually been dynoed recently, and it made 300 at the wheels on a dyno jet. So impressive power numbers. It's only at 11 PSI right now. So I mean, potentially this car could do a lot more power-wise, but the 964 isn't all about raw power. That's not what this car's for. And power at 35. Wow. Okay. That does not feel like 300 at the wheels. That feels like a solid 400 at the wheels. That is a lot quicker than I expected it to be. And even with this aftermarket turbo, you do get a little bit of lag, but not nearly the amount of lag as you get with kind of these higher horsepower cars I've been driving lately. I'm having a hard time explaining what's going on right now in my mind while I'm driving this car. It's a really cool experience. I mean, this thing is a piece of history that is never going to come back, let's face it. An air-cooled 911 with a manual transmission in this classic 911 shape.
It's easy to look at the craftsmanship and bodywork, only to think to yourself, they really don't make them like they used to. And you'd be right. It's all Porsche, and it's all perfect. Each panel rolling into the next like it was fresh off the drawing board. The cockpit, designed for one thing, mastering the road ahead of you. More than adequate for the 911's road-holding capabilities are the leather seats, showing no signs of wear even after 25 years. Driving inputs are carefully thought about and placed accordingly, with the gauges no more complicated than they need to be.
There's just no hesitation in what this car will do. You tell it to do something, and the response is just so direct. It's weird because power in a Porsche feels a lot different than any other car I've been in. The uniqueness of the rear engine format just means that there's so much less distance and moving components in between the moving pistons and when the power actually hits the road. So even with the turbo, the power band is incredibly linear. If you hit the gas anywhere above 3,500 RPM, car just plants and it just goes. Just keeps pulling. Wow. Okay, that was way too fast. I can't help but laugh right now. This car is such a character to drive. It's got so much personality. Everyone knows the 911 is a driver's car through and through, but the 964 Turbo, this is better than I ever expected it to drive. I'm gonna go out and say it. I know a lot of people might not want to hear this, but this is the most fun I've had behind the wheel of any car here on Roads Untraveled. This is my favorite car that I've ever driven. Don't get me wrong, I love Skylines and I love Supras, and obviously we're going out to find these cars. I love all of them, but if I had to pick one so far, this is the car.
Look, 911s of this era are becoming garage queens, sitting in spotlights until they're sold to the next enthusiast. I'm sorry, John, that we made your car a filthy mess, but we both know it was worth it. The 911 is meant to be driven and appreciated for what it is, regardless of the asking price. Plus, I think it looks better this way.
The one thing that drew me to 911s in the beginning, and what really started to make me appreciate these cars, is just the shape of the car. And I mean, sure, it hasn't really changed much in the past 50 years. It's what Porsche thought the perfect sports car was back when it came out. And throughout the years, they've just kind of subtly improved and made better changes to it, such as, I mean, moving with the times, ABS and power steering in this model. But the fact is, it hasn't taken away from the core driving experience of this car. I'm trying to find flaws with it. And I mean, you could find the kind of the obvious things that, oh, the car is pretty cramped. This car is extremely small. Comparing it to the SW20 MR2 I owned, smaller than that on the inside. I've been in a Miata. I would compare this to about a Miata sized in here. The windshield's really close to your face. The clutch takes a little bit to get used to just because it's floor hinged. It's heavy but extremely progressive, and when you're driving, your feet are kind of angled towards the center tunnel there and the shift linkage. So what you actually have to do, and you really have to kind of move your feet over there. But the good thing is the pedals are really close together. So when you're in the corners and you're shifting and rev matching or whatever it is you're doing, there's not much work that goes into that shift because they're just right there. You look behind you, that classic whale tail coming out the back. What other car can pull that off from the factory? I just don't know. It's an iconic shape that'll never get old in my eyes. It's a timeless design. I'm so glad that the owner of this car decided he would let me drive it for the day and make a film with it. So I really hope you guys appreciate it. Head on over to roadsandtravel.net to get all the latest content, articles, driving routes, photos, all that good stuff. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, like us on Facebook, subscribe to the YouTube channel, go tell your friends, and let us know what you think about air-cooled Porsches down in the comments below. We will see you next time. So I'm going to put this in context for you guys. My first ever Porsche experience was riding shotgun in a 918 Spyder not too long ago. You can find that video on our channel. And in fact, just a few days ago was the first time I had actually ever driven a Porsche, and it was a 997 GT3 RS. I only drove it like around the block for about 10 minutes. So this is my first time actually really driving a 911. The 964 Turbo, to me, is one of the best looking 911s. Of the air-cooled 911s, it's my personal favorite just because the bumpers are more molded into the body, and the turbo model has those really wide open fender flares in the back that the Carrera does not. for a first taste in a 911, I couldn't have asked for anything more.